Bear Essentials podcast gives older bears a place to gather for real talk regarding topics and issues that they can relate to. Here at the Bear Essentials, we aren't just having conversations. We are looking to provide actionable intelligence through real-life experience and expertise of our guests. Our mission is to build a strong community that elevates and motivates people to go beyond their limiting beliefs by helping them realize that getting older is not an excuse to hibernate on their goals, but a reason to work harder.
Hey, Jack, how's it going? Thanks for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
No, of course, Charles. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, Jack, been definitely wanting to catch up with you. Obviously, we have a mutual friend who did the show, and Toby Rand, and he had some really good stuff to say about you, and thought that you would be a great guest, and would be able to really help to, you know, get your story out to people to help inspire some other people. So I'm really looking forward to it. Would you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. My name's Jack Pearson. I'm currently in Huntington Beach. I'm Australian. I moved over to LA. This will be my 10th year in California now. I'm an actor. I started acting when I was 18 or 17, sorry. I did a series for Disney, a couple of television shows in Australia, came over here, got a green card, did some more TV, some acting. And yeah, now America is home. So yeah.
Well, nice. Well, we're glad to have you. Can't get enough good people over here. So glad you're joining us over here on this side of the pond. So thanks for that. So obviously you say you've done some acting. You mentioned Disney. What shows? Anything that people may recognize that they would know?
Yeah. Well, I did a Disney TV show called As the Bell Rings. That was my first big big break. I had no idea what I was doing. I did 3 seasons of that when I was 17, 18, and 19. That was popular on the Disney Channel. And then I went on to do a show called Neighbours, which is big in Australia and the UK. And then a show called Winners and Losers, which I did for 5 years in Australia, which was really popular, a dramedy weekly sort of weekly show that, sort of launched me and gave me I guess I finally decided to become an actor. And started pursuing it properly. And then, America was calling. So that then led me to come over here. And the last couple of years have been really fortunate. I've done a bunch of little sort of indie films. Work's been good, but I mean, just like any actor out here, you end up in restaurants, bartending, serving, Uber driving. It took all of that. I've just been really fortunate. The last couple of years have been has been acting work. So yeah.
Well, that's really good to hear. So, Jack, was acting something you always wanted to do, like from a young age, or was how's that happen?
No, I didn't think. I didn't even think it was. I don't think I was aware that it was even a thing you could do. I was aware that there was acting, but I didn't know it was a job. I actually went to a public school, pretty rough high school. And I was fortunate enough, my sister, I'll explain the story. My sister was going to a better school than I was, a private school. I was going to this shittier school. My sister came home with a laptop one day, and I was like, well, I want to go to that school. My parents couldn't afford it at the time. I ended up getting a scholarship going there, and I saw this, like the first school assembly. I saw a guy, Nate Swain. He was going to be singing a song from The Little Shop of Horrors, which was the High School Musical. All I was thinking, and I've told this story a few times, but all I was thinking at the time, because of the school that I'd come from, I was going to bash this guy, like get some credit. Like I really, my mindset was like, I'm going to get some points with the other boys, and this guy's a loser. He's singing and dancing instead. I don't know. That was my mindset. And so I sat there listening and watching Nate sing, and all the guys in in our line of chairs, like stood up at the end. It was all super encouraging and really sort of just this amazing total black and white of what I was thinking. And then I think right then in that moment, I was like, oh, I want to be like that guy. Mm. And ended up doing the high school musical. I got picked from an agent in the audience, ended up going to an acting school. And my very first audition was Disney. And I got it. So then I left school for a couple months and filmed a Disney TV show, fell in love with it. I thought this was the best job ever, getting paid to play pretend. And, I got a taste for it. And then I think after high school, after the show finished, I was just working. I had no real aspirations to do any university or any more schooling. Ended up having a chat with a mate a couple of years down there. Like I had little acting jobs here and there, but ended up having a chat with my mate who was in a similar position to me and was kind of like, hey, look, if we're really serious about this acting thing, why don't we do school? Why don't we go to school for acting? And I ended up studying at a musical theatre school. I almost made it through the entire first year, but that's when I got the next big TV show, which was Winners and Losers. So yeah, and then it was serious for me. Then it was a career, and that was 8 months of the year for the next 4 years. It was a really great job. And then, I've sort of been in love with it ever since.
Yeah, it's amazing that, you go in with a preconceived notion, right? And then boom, all of a sudden you're like, man, that's what I want to do. That's pretty awesome. And Jack, I think I saw somewhere that you also play piano. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. Piano's more of I'm no Toby Rand by any means, no musician at all, really. Piano's always been, I've always been very lucky. We've always had a piano in the house with my family home. Yeah, it turned out to be sort of me falling in love over the years. I always thought the most romantic thing you could ever do was write a love song and sing a love song. It turns out singing and playing piano is really fucking hard. But I did teach myself over the years, and it's turned out to be, these days for me, very therapeutic. Definitely a way of letting my muddledness come out and in lyrics, and again, no real musician or anything like that, but I really enjoy the whole process of sort of writing a song, and piano is really great for that.
So Jack, the other thing I wanted to ask you, so I've always heard, and you're acting, and you mentioned at the beginning, you come to Los Angeles, you're a lot of people go there, they want to be actors, they're doing a lot of other things other than acting. I mean, has it ever gotten to a point for you where you've said, hey, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I should do something else? Or has your success always pretty much had you hyper focused on staying in acting?
It's a good question. I think, I mean, I have that question. I think I asked myself that today. Without diving into it too quickly, I'm diagnosed manic bipolar type 1, and I've only very recently sort of discovered that, but it's explained a lot of the difficulties I've had and the ups and downs, and the industry that I'm in, acting. It goes from super highs and successes of, yes, we got the role, 6 weeks of work or 2 weeks of work or 2 days of work on a big show or a TV show. Then all of a sudden there's all this fear all the time of getting the next thing. And also the travel, last year, I think I was in, I filmed in Montana, I filmed in Florida, I filmed in Colorado, I filmed in Australia, I filmed in Mexico for little bits of time. And that travel interrupts every other aspect of any normality in your life, as far as sort of having a steady income, as far as having a steady place to live. That question of whether or not this is for me is like, I think over the years, I've struggled with it, because I've struggled with organizing a routine. You always want to, funnily enough, and this might be really lucky for me, I've been fortunate where I have, I've decided to focus on right now. For instance, this year, I've just got a new house down in Newport Beach. I have a new great job at a restaurant that's really great paying. I'm working 5 days a week, managing, serving, bartending, doing the whole thing. And, the big audition comes through for a TV show that shoots in Australia for 6 months that starts in 3 weeks. And there is part of me that really wants to, okay, I've really just got my feet on the ground again here. I would love to just sort of, let's just put the head down and get back on top of things. But with acting, it's always like that. So is it really, I don't know. It's kind of, for me, it's been like every time I've tried to maybe step away from it, it's pulled me back in somehow. And I know that sounds wankerish or whatever, but it's really sort of how it's felt for me. It's sort of always been calling, so similar to piano being a therapeutic release, acting has also, in a weird way, always been sort of on the shoulder, sort of like, hey, come have a look at this, Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I think it's, to me, it sounds
it's a
like
long-winded way to answer that question. I'm sorry. I sort of
no worries, man. Honestly, I think when I hear you say that, right, even listening to you explain it, I mean, to me at least, it's always going to be there for you, right? Like, I don't think it's ever going to not be calling you. At least the way you talk about it, that's what it seems. And you mentioned something interesting there, and I know we're going to get into that a little bit, but you talked about, being diagnosed manic bipolar. I think that's what you stated, right?
Yep.
You said it explains a lot. Being diagnosed, does that almost become a relief for you, Jack? Was there parts of your life now that you kind of can make sense of because of your diagnosis?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. As far as a relief though, no, I wouldn't say it was a relief. I think, my dad had, similar or the same, diagnosis, that he, that I didn't find out as kids. We didn't find out until very later in life, which then at that time explained a lot of his behavior and the ups and downs, and also, mood swings. But even, I think as a kid, I didn't really, still even in my teenage years, I didn't really understand it either. My dad, just over a year ago, ended up killing himself. He hung himself at work, and very successful genius of a human being. His suicide really made me worry about my behavior. Besides it, obviously, losing my hero, it made me really worry about certain similarities that I had to him, that I knew of, and I really tried to run away from it quite a lot. Which in hindsight was not the right thing to do. I think he battled with a lot of demons, and the mania and stuff like that can be such a gift and such a superpower, but also then those lows and spiraling can really get you to a point, amongst other things, to where you get to that dark spot where you really you you end it, and you can't see anything else. I got diagnosed late last year, after I attempted suicide and went into a mental housing facility, where I was monitored and started medications, had to, do all of that, and incredibly weird, interesting time. But I really needed help. I was running away from it, and getting the diagnosis, I think, back to your question, I'm sorry, I'm deviating a little bit, but it wasn't a relief at all. I think I was shit scared, and it probably didn't. It was really shit scary because of I attempted to also hang myself. So I'd got to that same point, which, I have a lot of guilt and shame about all of it. But yeah, I think now, and again, one of the reasons I'm probably choosing to talk to you about it is that I did need help. I got help. I'm feeling a lot better. I still struggle every day with certain things. I'm adjusting. Medication helps. That was something that I was really worried about. I talk about piano being therapeutic. I thought that I would have these pills and all of a sudden I wouldn't be able to write music anymore, or I wouldn't be able to tell jokes or be funny anymore and stuff like that, which is not the case. Yeah, relief. It's a weird thing. I think it's a really scary thing. Manic bipolar sounds awful. When I say it out loud, it sounds terrible. It's not a nice. It doesn't have a nice ring to it. It's like, oh, and I learned a lot. I do a lot of research on it, identifying my highs and lows now. And again, I'm not my diagnosis, and I look at it very much as a superpower if I can control it.
Yeah. No, well, let me first state that, I think it's...
I gave you a lot then, I'm sorry.
No, man. I think it's incredibly brave that you're doing this. And I'm glad that people like you are willing to come out and speak about it, because I think there's so many people that we just don't even know because they don't speak about it. I'm going to mention somebody here now to you that I want, when we're done, I want you to look him up. General Greg F. Martin. He did my show last year. He's known as the bipolar general, and he legitimately spoke on this show about it being a superpower until it wasn't.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, there you go. See, I haven't. Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
it
so
is. It's yeah.
I definitely want you to check that out. And when I had said to you about it being a relief, I didn't want to sound insensitive. What I was more...
Oh, no, you weren't at all.
Yeah.
No,
I think what I was more getting at was like just relief from the perspective of, at least now I know what the hell's going on, and now I can try to figure it out. Right. And I'm very sorry about your father. I know we talked briefly, prior to this, and you said the story was heavy. So I was expecting, it to be a bit on the heavy, darker side. And I think that's okay, because I think, honestly, for people to watch this, I think it's weird, but in order to get light, they need the darkness first. And I think, people like you can show that. For your father, I want to ask you, growing up, things like that. Any signs? Did you guys, were you surprised? Did you ever think anything was wrong?
Oh, yeah. My dad was my hero. He was incredibly, incredibly gifted human being who had the ability to sort of, it sounds so cliche and everything, but his ability to, he ran restaurants, hotels, was Stevie Wonder's tour manager, did all of these incredible things and never really stopped. And I think when he did stop, it was really, he then battled with the uncomfortability of just like of being still, and something that I really disliked about how my dad treated life was that it was always hard work, and he never really knew how to switch off and enjoy life. Switch off might not be the right term, but he just couldn't, like, he couldn't wind down. And I get that. I have definitely elements, but I think because of how he went about life, I kind of pushed against that and almost probably too much, and enjoyed life and partied and still party and have a great time and try and take it all in, even though it's in a mania as well. There's definitely signs. Mum dealt with it a lot before we had to, but you know, there was elements growing up where, you know, very out of nowhere anger, out of nowhere sort of, and you know, the thing about being incredibly smart and gifted and, you know, almost like a debate artist, if you're angry at someone, it's, you know, it would be, you'd say things, and I'm guilty of it as well. You say things in an argument to win the argument. You could bring up something from 4 years ago to hurt that person just immediately, and just to shut, and like that, you were just stunned and speechless, and you'd lost. And there were just powers like that where when he would be, you know, negative. But don't get me wrong, my dad was incredible. Was just the most incredibly hardworking, just a genius. Ended up sort of creating an empire out of the back of a ute, which, you know, made our family a massive property and estate. And, you know, we have horses and motorbikes and everything, and boats that everything we ever wanted was because of his hard work and because he couldn't turn off. The only problem was that even though he built the biggest, massive infinity pool that looks over the valley of this gorgeous estate that he's built, he'd never had any time to sit by it and enjoy it, you know. There were signs. I think COVID, I think him sitting in his empty big factory by himself, I don't know, I have a lot of questions about that last day. You know, there will always be questions. What was interesting and really upsetting to me, I guess, and again, there's a lot of shame in it, but I when I got to that point as well, you know, and it's different, but when I got to that point, I couldn't see anything else. You know, my brain hadn't turned off for 3 or 4 days. I hadn't eaten. I was drinking to try and get to sleep, you know, drinking to try and get to sleep, and then not sleeping. And I couldn't, something had really snapped inside of me when I attempted. And, you know, what's really interesting about my story, and something that I'm trying to figure out, is, you know, I hung myself from a tree in the backyard and with a snatch'em strap, and I tried to, and I reckon the branch definitely, I know I could tell, the branch would have held me like it should have, but it broke. You know, and I've never been religious. In fact, like you know, part of how my dad raised us was kind of like, you know, you do everything yourself. If you can't rely on anyone else, not anyone upstairs, not anyone. But I am, after, you know, what happened and me getting, let's call it a second chance, I don't know, I am thinking that, you know, there is a reason for that. There is maybe divine intervention, whatever it is. Something that I'm really trying to figure out in my new life, on my other side of that, you know.
So when you, leading up to that, did you know you were going to attempt to do it? Or did it kind of just quickly escalate to that point and it was more like, that's it, I'm doing this?
it was weird. The 2 weeks leading up to it were actually two of my favorite weeks. I'd moved to Colorado recently with my ex-fiance. She bought a house out there with the help of her parents. We'd been having a rough year since Dad had passed. I'd not been myself, so we'd really been struggling in the relationship. And a lot of that was definitely me. I can, it's a two-way street, but yeah, we'd been really struggling, and I think she'd struggled with communicating just how bad things maybe were with how hard I was to deal with. And again, this is pre me being on medication, me self-medicating a lot, especially when I'd hit a low. Now that I look back on it, I can identify that me hitting a low, the thing I would do when I was spiraling would be to go chase something to try and get out of it. So that would be partying or drinking, drugs, trying to get height, and then then would crash and sleep. And I hadn't really slept much in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, which is a big sort of bipolar thing, I guess, that I'm learning about. It's not normal to just have 2 to 3 hours sleep a night for weeks on end. So
right.
Imagine what I can do now on 6 hours.
Yeah, right. Like, look out, yeah. Right, man? Look out now.
Exactly. But yeah, no, the weeks leading up were actually really, we'd sort of, I was working, she was working, we were in Colorado. It was a beautiful time of year out there. And things were really great. And I felt like both of us agreed on that. And we'd been talking about it, trying to sort of, start this new part of life. It felt like the right part of life, the right age for me to be where we were at. And this is with the house, the dogs. And then, the bombshell came out that she'd sort of been sleeping with someone else. And I actually took it really well when I first found out, because due to the therapy that I've been doing and everything, I was, don't react, let's just, I went to work that night. I came back, and from then on, I got hurt too much. There was a whole bunch of previous factors. I was away from my family. My brother and sister weren't really communicating with me. The relationship had really been severed a bit, because after Dad, I had to leave to go back to America, to my life. And they were dealing with Mum and having to take care of everything to do with post-Dad and what he'd left us in a shitstorm. And they sort of had no one to not hate, but, to hate. And so I was the one who left. So I copped that. There's a lot of different factors. I'd also just moved to a small town in Colorado. I was in Fort Collins. I'd left all my friends chasing my fiance and this relationship. And then to have that last little thing, it didn't happen. I didn't think about it. I went to a hotel room for space, walked around a hotel room for 3 days, didn't eat, drank, tried to go to sleep, could not go to sleep. I knew I needed to go to sleep, but the thing about going to sleep, the more you need to, the more you try to go to sleep, you never go to sleep. Right. And then I eventually sort of went back to the house and asked to have the house to myself. And then I was sitting in the backyard, and I just looked at the branch and looked at the fence and walked to the shed and grabbed a rope. And that was kind of I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't see anything beyond that next 5-10 minutes. Beyond the time that it was going to take me to walk to the shed, to the tree, I could not see further than that. I saw it would be easier. I don't even know, honestly, that might be even a bit of an exaggeration. The whole, it might be easier without me stuff like that. I think I felt, well, it's been good and there's nothing more now. What else is there? I've had a fantastic life, I know that, but it wasn't even the thoughts that were going through my head. I wasn't thinking about anyone else, which is the scary and shitty part about it, because the message that definitely coming on here and speaking to you and hearing your story, I mean, the reason that I'm alive is because of the friendships that I have. And a mate came and flew to Colorado. My mate Dennis, he flew to Colorado, and if he had arrived an hour later, I'd be dead. You know, he came, rescued me, put me on a plane somehow, and then put me in, you know, in a mental facility here in Santa Ana, California. But yeah, as far as leading up to it, no. And, you know, there's a lot of factors. I think I should have been on medication a long time ago. I should have been asking for more help. I was struggling with a lot of things. And that's the thing, you know, we talk about this bipolar being a superpower, which 100% it absolutely is, until it's not. It is until it isn't, you know. And imagine like how I felt, you know, my dad hung himself, and less than a year after, I was doing the exact same thing. Like, that's fucked up. It's fucked up. And, you know, you know, I have, again, like, I'm on the other side of it now, but it's like, even saying it out loud is, fucking, how did shit get so turned around? How did I end up, you know, I know what suicide does to families. I know what it has done to my family. I know what it's done to my friends, people who know my dad, who know me, who are affected by it. It is a massive ripple effect that is really hard to overcome and to deal with and to understand and to provide help for someone who's going through it or anything like that. But there is help there, and there is help, and there are people and friends that, you know, you need to lean on. But I mean, what a bizarre turn of events that, you know.
Yeah, but honestly, man, I think what you just say in there, right? Like, and I think when you watch this, once I air it, you're going to see it too. Like, you're going to see the emotion in your face, and it's going to, honestly, man, I think you say about being on the other side of it, you can tell, because just that emotion that is coming out of you when you said that about, you know, here you are a year later doing the same thing, you know, like, I mean, look, you mentioned how it impacts families, things like that. I mean, it just, there's so many people out there that just, they don't think about it. Right. And that's why, like you say about the only reason you're here is because that branch broke. Right. Jack, I'll say this to you. We don't know how many people will watch this or hear this or see it. I'm pretty sure though it's going to connect with one person. And that may be the reason that branch may have broke, because that's why, right? You needed that. I mean, and Jack, I wanted to ask you, because so many people that contemplate suicide, I don't think I think because of what you described, that's why, because people think about, how could somebody do that, right? You laid it all out. You weren't thinking about anybody leading up to it, right? And I don't think anybody is. So as you're going through with it though, like, and you're here now, I mean, as you go to do this, and what are you thinking at that point?
I did think about who would find me, and I thought it might be my ex-fiance. Turns out it would have been my friend who flew out. It's a really bizarre, you know, I think, because, you know, obviously something chemically is very different for me, the way that how I got there. There's a lot of the ups and downs that even happened within that day of, like, getting back to the house, my whole life changing and being, you know, unhoused, and now what am I supposed to do? There's no other options. There was, you know, again, I think all of that, you know, I'm sure people that find themselves in a similar position, it is, I guess, what you'd call rock bottom, right? And then it's the rock bottom, but, like, even up is rocks. So you're trying to, there's no get out anymore. This is like, well, this is where got to, and this is it. I think something that I'm learning a lot about is, and I speak in therapy about it quite a bit, is like suicide ideation, which, because of my relationship with suicide, because of dad, there is a lot of you hear and see suicide a lot more, and you think about it more because it's part of my life now, and whether that be sort of the amount of times at a party. I always think this is really interesting now, the amount of people, even I've heard it twice today, and I can bring up the exact times it was said, but it's like, oh my god, if that happened, I'd kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And people say it all the time, and it's the amount of time in TV shows it's referenced, and everything like that. It's almost like I've got a hearing sort of buzzer that goes off. You can just hear it, and it's thrown around like flippantly. And because of that ideation and like my relationship to it, it's sort of it's constantly in the air, and it's not the feeling of like, oh god, driving down the freeway, god, you could kill yourself pretty easy by doing that and going into. I guess it's a whole mixture of things, but it is something that I think, because it's in front of me so much at that point in time, it was an option that was sort of like a get out card, and so, you ask about the lead up and the 2 weeks and whatever, there wasn't much, but I guess it's always been an option there because suicide is real and it does exist, and you can do it because you can, and it's an awful, terrible thing. And I really, I would just urge anyone that is struggling with those thoughts and that black dog that's hanging around, and that, there is just help, and you have friends, and it's so much better on the other side. Like how lucky I am to have a chance to go again and to learn to redo life, and to have a relationship with my brother, and to maybe, if we do get across to someone, that it's just, it gets so much better. It gets so much better, and it's. Yeah, I just think those. I don't know. It's really hard for me to explain or to answer your question properly. That those final sort of, yeah, it's a weird. It's almost. It's a bit blurry, and maybe deliberately or subconsciously, I'm suppressing.
No, I think.
Yeah.
Listen, I think everything you're saying is going to be so important for people to hear, and So obviously we talked about the darkness and the heaviness, and you just said it about coming out the other side. So, when I spoke to you a week or two ago, I mean, look, I'll say this right now to everybody listening. You would have never told me that Jack even had these thoughts. So upbeat, never, ever. And I think that's what I want to get across to people, that like, it's, you never know. Like, you don't know what people are going through. And if I wasn't speaking to Jack on the phone and I knew a little bit about his story, I would have never dreamed it. I mean, Jack, not even being funny, I would have thought Toby asked me to interview you because you had acting gigs, man. Like, you were it was that upbeat, man. And it was that, like, the vibe, even after the call, it was like, and it's a compliment to you, man. You have an energy about you now, man. However dark it was before, your energy now, man, is extremely positive, and you really give off that positive energy, and it's infectious, man. I know when I spoke to you, and even some of the text messages. So, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Yeah. Thank you for starters. I appreciate it.
You mentioned about lyrics being a release. And, I do write some, not lyrics, but I write some stuff myself. But what can you tell, like, anything that you've written that you think would potentially, somebody else hearing it, it may make a difference for them at this point if they're having issues?
Yeah, there's a song I wrote um, on piano when I got back to Australia last year after all of this, and after I got out of the the joint, I call it, the mental facility. I'm trying to think. The chorus is something along the lines of like, all I know is I don't know anything anymore. All I know is I don't know anything anymore. And the verses are all sort of a little bit of a story, but it does talk about being lost. I'm lost and I'm broken. Like somebody said once, this feeling of nothingness turns into something. I should be better and clever and go out and get it, achieve all these goals that I haven't even set yet. But all I know is I don't know anything anymore. It's that very bipolar, but I'm lost and I'm broken. Like somebody said once, this feeling of nothingness turns into something.
Man, poignant, man. That
Yeah.
definitely hits, man. I got the hair on my arms put up, man. And hey, man, you got a good singing voice too, man. Like
Oh, no, man, no.
trying to act like
Toby,
you can't sing, man. Like
you've
that.
had Toby Rand on here. You've had Toby Rand on here. Go on.
Yeah, you know what? When next time you speak to him, he owes me actually.
Okay,
Because
good.
we did the show, man. He didn't sing for the show. I told
Oh, see, what are you doing? You've managed to get me to do a
yeah,
lyric.
he owes me at least a song or two on an episode, man. But so Jack,
Yeah.
now I mean, obviously you have your life,
Mm-hmm.
and coming on the show, I think we talked about it. I mean, I think you were hoping to get through to somebody or to help other people. I mean, and you mentioned about how, it gets thrown around about killing yourself. People say, I'm going to kill myself, things like that. I mean,
Mm.
are you kind of now in a spot where you're really looking to say, you know what, I need to be, or I want to be the difference in somebody else's life, to maybe it doesn't get to that point for them?
I mean, I think we all do. I think even your journey and listening to you, I've watched your keynote now twice, and I think we all do. I would be lying though if I'm not still honest about the battles that I'm constantly going through. Um, I'm figuring out what this manic bipolar is, how I'm dealing with that. But what I do know, all I know, is that things got to the darkest place that I think you can get to. And I went there, and on the other side, there is such life and such, there is happiness, there's joy, there is the ups and downs that are always going to be there, but those struggles, I think, empower us, and like they're put there so that you can get through and keep going. And like anything else in this life, like any hurdle or any of the one of the best things I learned in this mental housing place, it was actually day one of me being there, was get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. I'd go to bed saying it. And when you start to do that, even when the line at Starbucks is too long, the traffic is shit, all of that, getting comfortable with that uncomfortability is the difference. And it, for me, has made such an improvement in my life, because it can be worse, but you can also just change your perspective a little bit and enjoy life on the other side of that darkness. And like you said, there is that light. You need that struggle so you can appreciate the light. And when you start seeing it, and trust me, it's just starting to come through for me, and I feel really lucky. I'm still figuring out a bunch of shit. I'm figuring out my life still, my new life, my second chance. if someone listens to this and someone is struggling, my main thing would be that maybe I've conveyed that it can get better. It does get better. There is help. Be strong. And I don't know. I thought I was the strongest person and ever. I thought my dad was the strongest person ever. And we, still end up with the rope around your neck. So I think that, something that really resonates with me is a Robin Williams quote, which is be kind to everyone, because, everyone is facing a battle that you know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
And it is true. Like you talk about me being upbeat on the phone. That's how I am in a restaurant. That's how I am in real life and everything like that. On the other side of it is all the demons and the black dog that's hanging around all of us. And my message, if anything, is just that you talk about it. Do what you were doing, Charles. Do what an opportunity this is for blokes, especially, to speak about it, just to have a chat.
Yep.
Just to have a chat, because it's not fucking easy. It's fucking hard.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. And as you were saying that, man, I literally just I had posted something today and it just reminded me, and I posted that, on the other side, being broken to your soul, it's actually a chance for you to become whole. And on the other side of brokenness, there is hope and there is joy. And also the biggest thing on the other side of brokenness is that's where life returns. So I think you're a great example of that, Jack. Honestly, man. And look, I'll say this, man. When you say it, I laugh because I laugh at this part when you say about blokes, man, because I sit here and go, I'm a 51-year-old bloke who decided to turn his computer on and start talking to people. And I just feel fortunate to have gotten a chance to meet somebody like Toby, and in turn, somebody like you. And I think, listen, man, I think this is just this conversation and your story and your emotion is going to just shine through, man. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. And that's all we can try to do, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's out there now, right? I mean, and that's and I appreciate you, man. I'm sure, and I see that with even your story, what a journey, that should be celebrated and looked to as inspiration. And I'm sure it is for so many, and it's not trying to be that. It's more just like, fuck, God, if only I could rewind and punch Jack in the face with the information I know on the other side of that, but it comes.
We all feel that, dude. We all feel that way, man. I think you probably heard in my keynote where I'm like, I wake up some days and I'd be like, yeah, time to go do that self-destructive shit again, man. I look at it similar to, different but similar. I go, you know what? I don't know why, but here we are.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a great thing, man. Jack, listen, man, I am extremely happy that it's working out for you. I've learned this throughout my life, man. Like, none of us have a right to judge anybody else, man, because we all, I mean, I'll say we're all kind of fucked up in a way, man. We got our good
we are, man.
We got our good and our bad, and you know what? It's what it is, man. But this has been great, Jack. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. It's been an experience, that's for sure.
we definitely need to stay in touch, man. Listen, I want to say this to everybody. When I talked to Jack was very nervous about doing this. And the fact that he showed up and did this it should be commended. And I want to say that because so many people are suffering in silence, and it's not easy, but he came here and he did it. And Jack, I appreciate it, man. So thank you, man.
Thank you,
everybody.
Man.
Thanks for listening. If you know anybody that can benefit from hearing this, or you know anybody that you think have symptoms, please be sure to try to try to talk to
Yeah.
them, try to get them help. So
Yeah, reach out. It's really just asking, are you okay?
yep.
And then asking, are you okay again? And then just try and just know that there's people out there, and your mates and your friends, your family, everyone's there for you more than you know. Trust me.
Yeah. Jack, thank you again. And thanks everybody for listening to this. I've done a decent amount of episodes now, and to me, this is one of the most important ones. So I want to make sure that people hear this. So thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.
This has been the Bear Essentials. Thanks for listening. And remember, never hibernate on your goals.